My name is Nick Messenberg. I'm the chairman of the board for the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for coming out this morning. It's a beautiful morning, a beautiful venue. I'm glad to have you all here. So, welcome. This is the Beaufort Regional Chamber's 2025 State of the Community. This event is a pulse check of the community and a benchmarking effort for our collective progress towards the vision of economic prosperity. After 5 years of hosting the economic forecast, this event has evolved to give a deeper dive into key sectors in our community. We are excited about achieving this milestone. Look around, you're in very good company. Local leaders from every aspect of Beaufort are present. Thank you all for being here. The Chamber is able to hold programs like this thanks to our members' investment and because of supportive corporate citizens who have stepped up to sponsor this gathering. And just to take a moment to recognize our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, the Coastal Community Foundation, our regional data report sponsor, the Beaufort Jasper County Realtors, our program sponsor, 303 Associates, our video sponsor, Top Highway, our breakfast sponsor, and breakfast did look delicious, I hope everybody enjoyed it, is Carolina Air. Our entertainment sponsor, the Technical College of the Low Country, and special thanks to Peggy Berry Bartz, our pianist, and our forecast sponsors, Alpha Graphics, Amy Bowman with State Farm, Beaufort Memorial Hospital, the Beaufort Military Enhancement Committee, USCB, and of course our venue sponsor is Dataw Island. And I'd like to invite Amy Ferreira, who helped plan this event and is ready to help with your next event. I'd like her to come up and say some welcoming words.
Good morning, welcome everyone. All right, thank you guys so much for being here. I know that the Chamber's put together a really awesome event for you guys today, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to have that view in the background while you're listening to that, right? So welcome to the island. I hope you're enjoying breakfast. Quick show of hands, just out of curiosity, is there anybody in the room who has never been here before today? Okay, a few of you, awesome. So the ones of you that have been here before, have any of you ever had an opportunity to meet any of the behind-the-scenes employees when you've been here? Mr. Highborn, you have a good excuse though. Well, I think as business leaders in the community, you all realize better than anyone else that the key to success in any business is the employees that you have. And I feel like those people deserve to be seen and to get recognized. So I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to introduce you to some of our key players that we have here this morning. First off, the captain of our ship, Ted Bartlett, our general manager, who I think we've decided has a database for a brain. He keeps track of everything that goes on this island and has the answer to every question, the drop of a hat. He is a wonderful leader. He walks that fine line of being respected and also being loved and appreciated by his employees. So we are really grateful to have him. Next up, Frank O'Hara. Raise your hand. So Frank is our clubhouse manager. I'm pretty sure he doesn't sleep, and if he does, it's here. He is the guy that keeps all of our lights on. He keeps a roof over our head. He is here running the pub and helping run events. It helps that he knows a little bit about wine, which is always super cool. He's our fearless leader of the entire food and beverage department, but also keeps all of our clubhouse operations going. Chef Dean is not out here. Chef Dean, I wanted to wear his hat in the cave. We'll come back to Chef Dean. Next up, though, our director of membership, Holly Mason, is right here. So Holly is our first face that all of our new members get to see. She's the perfect person for this job. She's always smiling, always happy and energetic, and always that person who's willing to go just a little extra step just to make sure that she can help somebody out in the right way. She has some materials outside available for anybody interested. A lot of people don't realize that we have memberships available for non-residents. So if you ever have any questions about our country club memberships or our dining memberships, holler your gal, and we've got some of her flyers and business cards outside in the foyer here. Then we have, where is Will? Will Angelo. You are literally right next to Holly. Okay. I'm awake, I promise. So Will is our director of security. He comes to us with a long history of law enforcement, but he has managed to win over our membership with his compassion and his willingness to roll up his sleeves and help in any area, including moving tables sometimes for us. He has really been a great asset. He keeps our island safe, secure, and orderly, and we are just really lucky to have him. Oh, perfect, Chef Dean. All right, so Chef Dean, he is our executive chef, if you couldn't tell. Chef Dean comes to us and just has managed to add a little extra touch of elegance to all of our menus, all of the plates of food that he puts out, and he does everything for our banquets, events, and for our hub. His interaction with guests and with members has really changed the way I think people have viewed their dining experiences here. And his teaching skills have really cultivated a wonderful staff in the kitchen that is reflected in what you see in the pub now and what you see at our meals. And you're lucky enough to get to enjoy some of his handiwork on that buffet this morning. So this is Chef Dean. David Morissette. Yes, David Morissette. He is our director of technology. So he's the reason we have microphones that are working right now. He is probably the person that I annoy the most when I can't figure out how to turn on my computer. So he's a full service IT guy. And then Shanley Wright in the back of the room here. Shanley is our banquet manager, so if you ever have any kind of event here, Shanley is running it. Shanley takes care of all of our events. She manages all of the setup, all the timelines, keeps everything moving on schedule, and manages all of our staff for all of our banquet events. So sounds like an exhausting job, and you're right, it is. But when Shanley stepped in to that position, it was clear that that is really what she was meant to do. She does a fantastic job with it. And feels a little strange to lump myself into such a category of awesome people, but I'm at the podium, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you about myself too. My name is Amy Ferrer. I am the special events coordinator here, and what that means is every event that we do, I book and help plan. I do the member events that we have here, fun stuff like the murder mystery nights and concerts on the range. I help people set up at their private dinners, their private parties that they want to do. But again, a lot of people don't realize that you don't have to be a member here to book our venues. So, keep in mind that we do have 2 wedding ceremony sites and 5 different venues that can be booked from anywhere from 10 people to 250 people. So, I also have some packets and some flyers out in the foyer. Feel free to take some of those, and of course, grab them while we're here afterwards if there's anything that I can help you with on that. So that being said, I will stop talking so you can move on to the reason that you're here now, but we just are so honored that you all are here. Thank you for coming out.
Maybe. All right. You guys hear me okay? All right. I appreciate that. So thanks again, Amy and Dataw for taking care of us this morning. Like I said, it's a great venue, beautiful day. Can't ask for any better. Also, as we kick this off, I'd like to thank SK Associates for their videography and photography, the county channel, and the county channel for broadcasting today's presentations. Also, thanks to our board members. For our board members in the room, can you please raise your hand? Great showing of our board today. Thank you all for being here. And also, our ambassadors are all getting proud. Our ambassadors do a really heavy lift, and I don't think they get near enough recognition. Our ambassadors, can you please put your hands up? I thank you all. I mean, without our board, the staff, and ambassadors, we could never pull off signature events just like this. So you'll see our agenda in the program, and to make efficient use of our time, we're going to dive right in. We'll set the stage for today's program with our annual regional data report, and I welcome Jen Gresham, CEO of the Beaufort Realtors Association, up to the stage. Okay, stage.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you to the Chamber for the opportunity to sponsor the Regional Data Report. I'm Janet Gresham, CEO of the Beaufort Jasper County Realtors and the Low Country Regional MLS. Since receiving our charter by the National Association of Realtors in 1962, we've spent more than 6 decades advocating for homeownership for all and standing up for private property rights at the local, state, and national level. We believe that homeownership is not only the pathway to building wealth, but also a key driver of creating stability for families, economic stability, and community pride. And we're proud to be a part of that mission. Being actively engaged in our community is at the heart of what we do. That's why we're delighted to partner with the Chamber to bring you today's event. As realtors, we understand the power of data. It equips our elected officials, community leaders, and local businesses with the insights they need to make informed decisions that pave the way for a brighter future. In that spirit, it's our honor to present the Regional Data Report. Megan, I'll turn the program back to you to share more information about it.
Thank you, Janet. We're going to dim the lights a little bit, so hopefully our slides, which are chock full of information, are easier for you all to see. I'm Megan Morris, and I'm proud to serve as the President and CEO of the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce. Point of privilege on a quick personal note, and this is something Darren was kind enough to ask me about earlier. My first year in this role has been very rewarding. I'm proud of our team, volunteers, and our members, all of you, for all the progress that we are making. A quick thanks for embracing me, embracing us and our organization as we continue our journey together. Now it's time to turn our attention to the numbers. The Chamber launched the Regional Data Report as a tool for our members and partners with a study conducted by the Darla Moore School of Business years ago. We're now able to update data here in town thanks to help from a friend who we met through a Chamber program. You might have heard of it. It's called Leadership Beaufort. Richard Tunstall is our data guru. He's the founder and principal for the firm Market and Analysis Research, and I enjoy working with him, truly do, Richard, to analyze the latest data that he compiles. This year's report spotlights population, workforce, and earnings data. I'll hit the high spots of the report today. You have a copy of some key graphs in the program that you were provided on your way in. And the deck that we share today will be available on the Chamber website for your reference. We're also going to do a deeper dive virtually for anyone who would like to join us on April 11th. Richard's going on vacation after this because I worked him so hard, so we've got to wait till April 11th. All right, the data today focuses on our region, which you see on the map in front of you in red. That's northern Beaufort County. This year, we've added in comparisons to south of Broad, which is in yellow, and Jasper County in green for more context. Our proximity and connectivity is undeniable, and working together is imperative. This map also shows within the red, our region, the 4 census districts, which are Yemassee, Sheldon, which includes Grace Hill, Labico areas, Beaufort and Port Royal, which are lumped together as a census district, and St. Helena, which includes Ladies Island and all the islands, from Fripp to Harper to where we sit today. Let's kick it off with population and household data. The key findings from this section, and then we'll share the graphs that show you in detail, are that a majority of our region's population live in 2 of the 4 census districts, the St. Helena district and the Beaufort-Port Royal district. Combined, they hold 92.5% of our total population in northern Beaufort County. St. Helena was the fastest growing district from 2010 to 2024. The Beaufort-Port Royal region is projected to be the fastest growing district in the next 5 years. The region is on an upward growth trajectory. The average annual growth between 2024 and 2029 is projected to be greater than the U.S. average of 0.5% and lower than the state average of 1.9%. The average household size in our region is 2.36 persons. That's below state and national averages. For households, owner occupancy rates are 53%, which is below state and national averages.
Vacancy rates are higher in the Beaufort region at 26.3% of all of our homes. And that is partly explained by higher percentage of vacation homes. So let's look at how we came up with those key findings. Here again is our map to portray the population levels in our region. Again here, that's the black outline. Jasper County has a blue outline and South of Broad has a red outline. The darker the green, the higher the population density. While our region has some variation, the other two are predominantly darker green. Looking at some population growth projections, we see a higher rate of growth in the darker shades of blue. Again, we see some variation in our region and a little more variation in the South Broad region, but Jasper is almost fully the darkest shade. Let's look into the population data. From 2010 to 2024, our region grew by 5,000 people. Our region is just shy of 80,000 people and projected to grow to almost 84,000 people by 2029, which would be a rate of about 1,000 people per year. For households, from 2010 to 2024, our region grew by 3,500 households. We're currently at 31 households and projected to grow to over 32,000 households by 2029. And in both cases, there's steady growth. Population growth trends. Breaking the information I just shared with you on the last graph, breaking it down into census districts, Yemassee and Sheldon are relation from 2010 to 2024, and over the next 5 years, we're projected to have a rate of growth at 1.1%. We're projected to have a rate of growth at 1.1% per year. And in both cases, our region's growth rate is under the state's average annual growth rate. All right, let's look at another angle. The colorful line graph shows household sizes for each of the districts so that you can see fluctuation. In each district, household sizes have decreased since 2010. I think our slides on age demographics coming up will give a little more insight into that shift. The second chart shows percentage of households that are owner-occupied in green, renter-occupied in orange, yellowish orange, and then vacant homes on that top line that looks red. Our region has seen a decrease in owner-occupied homes since 2020, a slight increase in renter-occupied homes since 2010, and an increase of vacant homes, which does include seasonal and vacation homes that we've seen an increase in since 2020. Looking a little closer at that vacant home category, we can break out the vacation homes specifically. There's been a decrease, but because this information is specifically pulled from our MSA data, it includes all of Beaufort County as well as all of Jasper County. We had 20% of vacant homes as vacation homes in 2019. We've seen a slight decrease to 13% by the end of 2023. Each year, we can see on the chart that the amount of vacation homes is 3 to 4 times more than state average. And the dark line on the graph reflects that state average. All right, to wrap up this section, let's compare our region to our neighbors, as I promised. Numeric population is the first graph. All three, not surprisingly, have seen an increase in population. The second graph shows rate of growth, where we see our region's rate is lower than South of Broad, Jasper, and South Carolina as a whole. Context is always important. Growth is far better than the alternative, reduction. Unfortunately, there are many rural towns in South Carolina that have a declining population, declining businesses, limited opportunities, and a declining quality of life. Dr. Laura Ulrich, who many of you know has headlined this event in years past, was recently hosted at a housing forum and shared some terrifying stories about places that are facing reduction. So I'm really glad we're not in that. Let's move on to income. Let's talk money. All right, our key findings on income is that per capita income averages $38,706 for our region. Median household income is $71,869. Those are about equivalent to the state averages and below national average. Per capita income for our region is 17% below national average, and the median income is 10% below. Median income in the St. Helena district, remember that includes St. Helena, Ladies Island, all the Sea Islands. That one is higher than any other district. And higher incomes in Beaufort County are concentrated south of Broad River, where their income level averages at $96,136. Back to our heat map to set up our data. The darker the orange, the higher the median household income. South of Broad does have more orange, dark orange, than our region and Jasper. Let's take a look at the numbers. For the first graph, the first data set is per capita median income in our region, which is currently $38,700. It is projected to increase slightly. The second set is our median household income, which is currently $71,869. The next two data sets show the U.S. numbers for comparison, and our per capita income is almost $10,000 less than national average, and our median household income is approximately $8,000 less than national average. The numbers reflected in this chart are all forecasted to increase slightly. Now taking a look at median household income by our census districts. This shows the Beaufort region is slightly above state average most of the time. The St. Helena district is far above the other three districts and more closely aligns with the South of Broad numbers we've seen. This shows the biggest income growth in recent history occurred between 2020 and 2024. Income in context. In comparison to our neighboring counties, South of Broad has a median income of $96,000, which is approximately $25,000 more than our region and $35,000 more than Jasper. That's a wrap on income. Let's look at age. I know. We're all getting older. I am too. I think it's good that it's not taboo to talk about it because this is a really important data set. All of this data is intended to help us understand our region, make decisions about your business, drive public policy, and better understand the challenges that we are facing. Our key findings related to age demographics are here. The Beaufort median age range is 44.1. In South Carolina, it's 40.3. And nationally, age averages are 41.7. We in our region do have a high concentration of those aged 15 to 24 at 18%. That definitely reflects our military presence. Conversely, the Beaufort region is underrepresented in key workforce ages of 25 to 54 years of age. The percentage of 65 and older is projected to increase in the Beaufort region from 22% in 2024 to 25% in 2029. This heat map shows age variation. Again, the darker shades of pink reflect older median ages. The only white areas in all three sections of this map are in our region, and two of those three are our military bases. The median age at Paris Island is just shy of 20 years old. The median age at Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort is just over 22 years old. You can bet they help reduce our average. And they take care of national security. All right, looking at where we landed with age distribution at the end of 2024, where the orange line is higher than the bars, we are above state average. Where the orange line is below the bars, that's where we're lagging state average. Now raise your hand if your business has struggled recruiting and retaining workforce. That's less hands than I expected, so everybody needs to report to me what you're doing if you didn't raise your hand. In reports that we've conducted and partners like the Economic Development Corporation have conducted, we do see that identified as the #1 challenge for businesses in our region. The dip in this graph for the 25 to 54 range shows this shortage. We are well above average in 15-24, again due to the military, above average in 55 to 85, which is indicative of a high retiree population. Let's look into the future. We actually see these trends continuing and the divide getting bigger. As a Chamber of Commerce, we're always looking towards the future. Not only are businesses struggling with this issue now, imagine what will happen if this trajectory continues. The lagging age groups are primarily the ones that have children and are building families. What will Beaufort's future look like? If our population is increasingly lacking prime workforce age citizens who fill much needed jobs to help meet much increased demand. So let's round this out with another comparison. For the state average, as I mentioned, it's around 40 years old. In Ridgeland, Jasper, it's 49. South of Broad, the average age is now 54.1 years old. And again, our region is 44 years old. Looping back to that military population that I told you is so youthful, if we pull those out, which Richard was able to do by zip code, our average age would increase to 46. Let's dive into workforce and career opportunities. Our key findings with this data set is that the civilian labor force increased almost every year since 2010 here in our region. Labor force and employment are back above pre-pandemic levels. Unemployment in 2024 was around 4%, which does reflect a tight labor market. 74% of employment in Beaufort County is in services and retail trade, compared to 65% nationally. We are above average in the number of folks who work in the arts, entertainment, recreation sector and the hospitality sector, which generally pay lower wages. And I can't emphasize enough, armed forces employment is very important to our region labor force. On the bar graph, the green line reflects the civilian labor force capacity, and the orange bars show the total number of people with civilian jobs. The orange line reflects the unemployment rate, which we see decrease from 5% in 2014 to an average of 3 to 4%, with the exception of 2020. And if we had $1 every time any of us said that, we'd be doing all right. Our current rate of 4% is in line with state average and historically rarely lower. And again, I'll loop back to our friend Dr. Laura Ulrich. She said herself, it's not like there's employable people just waiting on the sidelines. So let's dive into where folks work. Looking at employment by sector, this circle graph shows that 2/3 of our county labor force is in the services sector, which includes hospitality and even healthcare. Not surprising, since we've had an increased demand for those services. The second highest sector is retail, and the third is construction. The corresponding chart shows how those levels relate to U.S. averages, and that we have some progress to make in manufacturing, trade, and TWIU, which stands for transportation, warehousing, industry, and utilities. Did I get it, Richard? Information and utilities. There's a story behind that. If you need to know, I'll tell you later. All right, breaking down that services sector because it is such a majority. Let's look at the makeup of that. Hospitality is the biggest percentage of our services sector at 36%. And second to that, healthcare and social work makes up 20% of that sector. Indexing against national averages, Beaufort County is above average, well above average actually, in hospitality and arts and recreation jobs. And while a good portion of our labor force is in healthcare, we're below national average on that statistic. Switching gears. This is my final slide. There's only one more. We're good. You're making it. This is a glimpse of those armed forces employees within our area. There are over 14,000 of them working at our bases. And we have seen growth in those areas since 2010. There's no doubt they're an important part of our region. So what? So what do we take away from this? The data tells facts. This is my interpretation of a few key takeaways I'd like you to remember today. In the population and household section, we're experiencing a healthy rate of population growth. We must adapt to these new levels and offer a diverse rate of housing. In the income section, our region's income levels lag national averages and would be improved by new sectors and businesses that offer higher wages. In the age section, cost of living is the biggest obstacle for recruiting and retaining prime workforce ages. We need to secure our future by taking steps to change the current trajectory. And with labor force, we need to attract more workers to our region and create opportunities for those educated here. We need a diverse set of business sectors while maintaining the importance of our two strongest sectors, hospitality and military. That's a wrap of our presentation today. Like I said, we will have this and more posted on our website for you. And I'm very interested to hear your feedback. If you want to give me a call or shoot me an email once you mull this all over, I'd appreciate your thoughts. And I'm serious, if you didn't raise your hand earlier, I want to hear what magic potion you have to be a full staffer. All right, now on to this morning's presenting sponsor, who was an inspiration for this event. In 2024, the Coastal Community Foundation, led by Darren Goss, embarked on a journey to develop community vision statements. They used many platforms to listen and discuss the community's priorities, concerns, and desires. I was grateful to be a panelist in one of your town halls here in Beaufort. I'd like to welcome Carrie Forrest, Vice President of Grant Making and Community Leadership for the Coastal Community Foundation, to share their vision with us.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all today. Some old friends and some new friends in this space. And Megan, I just want to thank you for your vision and your leadership leading the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce. It's been a pleasure. The foundation has really enjoyed working with you, and we really appreciate your leading in with us on this visioning report. So, as Megan said, my name is Carrie Forrest. I'm Vice President of Grant Making and Community Leadership for the foundation. I'm joined today by our President and CEO, Darren Goss, a number of our staff from Coastal Community Foundation, including our South Low Country office. We have Dennis Toney and Amy Page and Deb Slazik, who are here with us today. I'd also like to recognize that two of our board members, I believe two of our board members are here. Wendy Zara is here, as well as Mark Cutler. And we're really pleased to be a part of this event today in this beautiful space. And in a lot of ways, I appreciate the data that you've shared because it helps to set the table for the vision that I think that we all want to think about in terms of what is going to be a vibrant South Low Country, not just 5 years into the future, but from the Community Foundation standpoint, we're thinking 25 years into the future. So our foundation's mission is to create communities that are rich in equity, opportunity, and well-being by uniting people and investing resources so that all of our community members have a pathway to achieve their goals. And that mission has guided Coastal Community Foundation's work for 50 years and for 25 years here in the South Low Country. We've been working in Beaufort, Jasper, Hampton, and Colleton counties, and we've been privileged to impact the lives of thousands in our community through our grant making and our place-based impact investing. And I want to acknowledge that much of that work has been made possible through the generous support of the late Joanne and Alan Moses. Their generosity has supported over 200 nonprofits in the Hampton, Jasper, Colleton, and Beaufort counties, and they have left an indelible mark on this community. So we believe that the pillars of a vibrant community touch on positive physical and mental well-being, quality education, economic mobility, coastal resiliency, and a vibrant, inclusive culture for everyone. And there are numerous stories of how the foundation is helping and working with our partners to make impact across the South Low Country. Our most recent and largest Catalyst grant in 2024 was to the Beaufort County School Districts Unite program, a 3-year, $2.3 million grant to support that program, which will significantly expand their after-school initiatives, providing crucial support for students and for the educators across the community. And we're actively addressing one of the region's most pressing issues we've heard, affordable housing. We awarded a $200,000 Catalyst grant to Habitat for Humanity of the Low Country in 2022 to support their merger and expansion of services and their capacity to build and repair homes in Beaufort and Jasper counties. And most recently, we awarded an economic mobility grant to the St. Helena Gullah Community Housing Project to complete critical home repairs for those most in need. It's really good to see partners like Dale Duthet from the United Way of the Low Country here in the room, and Faith Polkey with the Beaufort Jasper Hampton Comprehensive Health in the room, and other partners who really have worked with the Coastal Community Foundation to make sure that we are serving all of our members of this community. And these initiatives demonstrate our dedication to fostering positive change here in Beaufort County and the region. So today I want to share with you the next stage and the next chapter in this work, our vision for the Low Country. So it was really interesting to look at the data, particularly around age, because when we started our community visioning project in 2024, we started with the premise that if you were a baby born in January of 2025, right here in the South Low Country, that child is going to grow up at the crossroads of great promise, great uncertainty, and a lot of change. So by 2050, what's the community's shared vision for that future toddler, child, teen, and working adult to thrive? This is a really big and important and necessary question that we began asking ourselves last year, and we're continuing to collect information and do deep community listening and learning. And we've been asking the community 3 questions. Number 1, what are your hopes and dreams for your community over the next 25 years? 2, imagine that it is 2050 and those hopes and dreams all came true. What's the evidence of your community thriving? And number 3, can you list the people and or the institutions in your community who you trust and who you believe would help us pursue this community vision over the next 25 years? So those answers will shape our 25-year 4-county community vision, our North Star, which when completed will serve as our roadmap to guide Coastal Community Foundation's priorities, strategies, investments, and our partnerships with the community. In our first year of listening, our community consistently affirmed 4 top findings. The first is start with our strengths. You know, it's really easy to list off the problems in a community, but if we focus on our strengths and that vision, can we use that to identify better solutions and plans and resources where we leverage those strengths to solve issues? Next, Megan spoke earlier about proximity and connectivity. And the 4-county region is very diverse, and it's composed of very separate and unique communities, but they're all interconnected. So how do we build bridges, literally and metaphorically? Because we do have more in common than we probably realize. We want to go big, wisely. To have a thriving community in 2050, we need to begin with a big and bold vision now. The stakes are too high for small plans, and inaction would be a risk. But we want to use slingshots, not moonshots. So in order to achieve those goals by 2050, we need to take the time to plan, partner, and pursue the right limited number of promising opportunities that can create the greatest impact. We have to be prepared in order to succeed. So imagine if we achieve our vision for a thriving southern low country by 2050. What would that look like? A community where every child has access to quality education and healthcare? a robust and diverse economy that provides meaningful work and living wages, a region that successfully adapts to climate change and preserves our natural beauty and resources, a place where diversity is celebrated and equity is not just a goal but a reality, and a community where the arts and culture flourish, enriching all of our lives. So, as I stand here with you all today, the Coastal Community Foundation is committed to partnering with you, leveraging our community's strengths and working tirelessly to create that thriving South Low Country for generations to come. And there's a lot of work ahead. I think that's what goes without saying, especially having seen all of that data. The next generation is counting on us. So as we roll up our sleeves to get started, I have one question for you all, which is, will you join us? As our community conversations continue, into 2025, will you join us in helping to create this vision? Will you help us dream big for this community? Will you join us in working collaboratively across sectors and across the counties? And will you join us in creating innovative solutions to these challenges? Together we can create a vision and turn it into a reality. And we can create a South Low Country that is rich in equity, opportunity, and well-being for all. Thank you all for this opportunity to speak with you this morning and for the opportunity to be of service to this community.
All right, now we would like to invite Russell Baxley, CEO of Beaufort Memorial Hospital, to share information about the ever-important healthcare services in our region. Do you want to use the clicker?
Sure. All right, good morning. I was excited when Megan and Nick asked me to present because you saw a lot of numbers and information on the presentation. You saw a growing population, you saw an aging population, and you saw a population that is short on workforce. And that has a material impact on healthcare in particular because as we age, obviously we are going to need more healthcare. And we are going to need more people who are able to join the workforce. And we are seeing trends, especially in Beaufort County, where that math and calculus doesn't work. And I can tell you today, we need more healthcare. If you went to the hospital today, we are full and have been full for a very long time. And unfortunately, that continues to escalate and be the trend and will continue to be the trend in Beaufort County for days, months, and years to come. And so I'm hoping that I hit on a few high points, specifically in this presentation, to really focus on the issues and how we're trying to address the issues of healthcare. And before I do that, I also want to thank my team here. Beaufort Memorial is a large table here, of people who really make what we do special and really contribute to the growth of Beaufort Memorial, including two board members, present and past, Ms. Renita Dorr and Mr. Jerry Schultz, who are here, who do a lot of good work on this non-paid board. And it's a very active board, and then I think also Dr. Faith Bouquet is here, who's also a past board member. And we appreciate everything that she has done in her role as a board member, but also in her role at Beaufort Jasper Comp Health, who is a very good partner with Beaufort Memorial. We work on a lot of things together to expand access to care. And so just to kind of set the table, this is who Beaufort Memorial is. 201 beds, so we are your largest hospital between Savannah and Charleston. In that hospital, we have 300 physicians on medical staff. We have about 1,800 to 1,900 employees. We have the area's only inpatient mental health unit at 18 beds. We also have an inpatient rehab unit at 18 beds. We have 10 operating rooms and 5 procedure rooms. That is growing as we speak. 2 cancer centers, north of Broad and south of Broad. And sometimes I feel like I have to explain what that means, but to this room I probably don't have to explain what the Broad and south of Broad means. But we do look at this county as what I call 2 healthcare ecosystems. Because north of Broad and south of Broad are very different in the needs that they have as a community, and we try to focus on that as we strategically plan on how we're going to grow as an organization. We have a new cath lab and a geography suite, and then everything else that we do there is listed. Sometimes what I say is it's easier to say what we don't do at Beaufort Memorial, which we don't do neurosurgery and we don't do open heart surgery. Outside of that, pretty much count on us as a community hospital to serve the needs of this community. You might ask, well, why don't you do that? Well, right now, we just don't have the volume to otherwise have a program that's supportive of neurosurgery and open heart surgery. And what we say is practice makes perfect, and that includes thoracic surgeons, and you want them consistently operating, not 60, 70 hearts a year. That's just really not enough to support a viable, thriving open heart program, which is why we partner with USC, right? Because they do it all the time, and practice, again, makes perfect, even in healthcare. This is where we currently sit, our locations, and 8 years ago, you would have seen mostly a lot of dots north of the Broad River. And now what you're starting to see is a whole lot of dots south of the Broad River to include now Hilton Head Island, because believe it or not, Hilton Head Island is probably more short of healthcare services and providers than even north of the Broad, Beaufort, St. Helena, and Port Royal. And so we've been called, and we want to answer the challenge of how do we expand healthcare across the county, because ultimately we are Beaufort County Memorial Hospital. You can't really spell healthcare without quality, right? And what we do is we present this slide, which is one of my favorite slides because it validates the great care that we provide. And when you look at this, when you look at other hospitals and healthcare systems, both big and small, I always like to say we swing above our weight class, and we have a lot of good people doing a lot of work. But for example, 2 years ago, we went to Washington, D.C. to receive a national award for a top 5% safest hospital in the United States. That is no small accomplishment, right? And that's big, that's small, that's academic medical centers, that's community medical centers. And what that says is when you enter our hospital or healthcare system or anywhere else in our organization, we are going to do our very best to keep you safe, and we do better than most. And I won't go into every other award that we've won here, but again, I think this slide speaks for itself for what we do as an organization. Our volumes, so I meant it when I said we're the busiest hospital between Savannah and Charleston, and you can see it right here in the number of what I call patient contacts, right? How many patients are we seeing throughout our network every year? 9,000 admissions and discharges. That's about 30 patients being admitted and discharged every day from the Memorial. 250,000 outpatient registrations. That's an MRI, a CT, a physical therapy visit. This year we're projecting closer to 300,000. Emergency room visits, 45,700. If you have visited our emergency room in the recent most couple of months, you have probably seen a full waiting room. People in the hallways, etc., because we are full and more people are arriving to the emergency room. We do about 120 visits a day in the ER. That is a lot for our size hospital. There are not a lot of hospitals outside trauma centers doing 120 visits a day in an ER that is probably built for more around 110 visits a day. 12,000 surgeries. This year that'll be 14,000 surgeries, 1,100 deliveries, and 292,000 physician office visits. We employ, as part of our organization, about 150 providers, meaning nurse practitioners, physician assistants, physicians. And I will go ahead and tell you it is not enough. So if you are new to the area, or you've called and tried to get a specialist visit, or maybe a primary care visit, you've probably heard at some point in time that visit will be 6 to 8 months. Right? Well, there's a reason for that. Some of my slides will go into why we have struggles accessing physicians. And then our financials, the big thing I want to point out here is we didn't make a profit last year. We are a nonprofit. Nonprofits are not to make profits, believe it or not. But one thing I want to say is we actually lose money on patient care. So if you look at our total revenue exceeds total expenses. But the key here is total expenses are about $350 million. That's about $1 million a day, give or take, that we spend every day to run the hospital and healthcare system. Of that $343 million, about $200 million is salary, wages, and benefits. So about 56 to 58% of all the dollars we spend go back into our staff, our benefits, etc. Our operating revenue is $331 million. So that is actually what we generate off of patient revenue. So if you look at that and say, what do we make on patient services? Zero. We actually lose money on patient services. We make that up specifically in the foundation, which is why the foundation is so important to what Beaufort Memorial does. Grant dollars, support from other municipalities. That is what is important, because where we lose money are community services. And I'll give you an example, psychiatry care. We have the areas only inpatient mental health unit. I can tell you, psychiatry care does not make the hospital money. It is a heavily subsidized service. Now you have to ask yourself, what would this community do without psychiatry care? What would the military do without psychiatry care? I can tell you, half of the people we see in our outpatient and inpatient mental health services actually support the installations here, mostly parasite. Right? Which is why it's so important for Beaufort Memorial to have a psychiatry service that ultimately loses money every year for the hospital, because it's important for the community and how we thrive as a community and what we do. So we lose money because we provide community services that others don't do. And I don't think we recognize that sometimes as we put sometimes an operating profit up here. We're fortunate in a lot of ways, but when it comes to providing patient care services, it is more and more difficult these days to provide high quality care based on the cost of care and what we get reimbursed for care. I mentioned the foundation. Last year we received close to $3 million of support, and that continues to grow as we expand. But certain things they assist with: addiction medicine. We have Suboxone clinic, pharmaceutical assistance, food insecurities programs. Not a lot of people know we deliver 50 meals a day to the food insecure in the Beaufort, St. Helena area. We prepare meals for our patients. We have a patient transportation program. Last year, that patient program, 2 vans that take patients to and from appointments, drove 26,000 miles. Saved a lot of miles driving for patients to and from. That served 23 zip codes, if you believe it or not, taking patients to and from appointments that didn't have transportation. The only transportation they had sometimes was an ambulance to the emergency room. Well, I can tell you that is the wrong place for them to be when they need primary care or other sorts of care in an outpatient setting. You see our transportation there. You see our wellness and shipmobile, and you see other partnerships we have. You see the Good Neighbor Free Medical Clinic. We partner with them. The labs and imaging that those patients receive are done at Beaufort Memorial at no cost to the patients with the Good Neighbor Free Medical Clinic. They sit on our campus. We don't charge them rent. We pay for their utilities. We do everything that we need to go to support the Good Neighbor Free Medical Clinic that does a lot of good work in this community. So healthcare headwinds. So my next 2 slides are extremely busy because it is extremely busy and I will say uncertain time in healthcare, especially with the change of the new administration. Now, I'm not going to get up here and try to debate right, wrong, or indifferent, Democrat versus Republican. All I'm going to say is this is what, based on what we're hearing from the federal government, which trickles down to the state, is going to affect health care. So currently, and why are we looking at this, right? Well, we're looking at this because healthcare accounts for about 18.7% of the GDP in America. That is a lot of money being spent on healthcare. And that continues to grow. It continues to escalate. You can see that graph right there. So the federal government, as we're all aware, through Doge and emails saying, what have you done for me in the last week, has said, we're going to cut $880 billion, and that needs to come from healthcare. Well, what services is that going to cut? They're saying not Medicare. I'll make a point there in just a second. But they're going to affect HHS and maybe 1,000 layoffs. Well, HHS affects how we do business through HRSA and grants and claims processing and payment models. So if 1,000 people are let go from HHS, that affects hospitals and health systems because we rely a lot on the federal government to pay us through Medicare. And if everything slows down to a slog, what do you think happens to hospitals or Beaufort, Jasper, Comp Health, or others that serve the community? Payments slow down, answers don't come when we ask these questions, and it becomes more difficult for hospitals to operate. Telehealth rules based uncertainty. How many have had a telehealth visit within the last 5 years so now? Okay, what I will tell you, if Congress doesn't intervene by March 31st, hospitals will not be able to perform telehealth visits as you have otherwise seen today, which means it's going to become more difficult to access your physician who's already difficult to access. Talk about physician payment cuts. So we know for a fact that inflation is on the rise. It continues to rise. Well, Medicare has actually cut payments to your physicians by 8% over the last 4 years. Now tell me how that math works, right? The cost of care continues to increase. Physicians continue to provide that care, but physicians are otherwise seeing payment cuts by 8% over the last 4 years. So you can see where there's a lot of angst with physicians, why maybe more physicians aren't entering the workforce, because as care is becoming tougher to deliver, the government's saying, do more with less, see more with less, get paid less, right? Well, that doesn't really make sense, does it? And so we're struggling to figure out how do we continue to provide care in an economy that keeps going this way when physicians are paid much less. And I remind you, we employ about 150 providers. So when we see these sort of cuts, it has a real impact on how we deliver care in Beaufort County. Exchange plans, right, wrong, or indifferent. If the federal government does eliminate the subsidies and maybe the navigators, it is estimated that 2.2 million people will lose insurance because the exchange plans are gone. Now, what happens to everyone in this room? Maybe nothing. What happens to the hospital? It's a lot less people with insurance, right? And that is not good for hospitals and healthcare providers. Tariffs. I won't tell you whether they're right or wrong. All I can tell you is we get a lot of our supplies from China, right, wrong, or indifferent, and tariffs have the potential to increase our supply costs by 20% if everything goes into effect. That is a big deal in an already escalating expense climate that we sit in today. And then your hospital bed crisis, this is no surprise, but there's a study done by UCLA that shows by 2032, 85% of all beds will be occupied. Why is that? Not because we have a shortage of beds, because we have a shortage of nurses. We have a shortage of physicians. We have enough beds. If you look at hospitals and say, I want to see a patient room, we have probably plenty of rooms. We don't have enough nurses. And that in itself is a problem. So local. So if I say, all right, that's national, now how is national driving, right, locally, what the state climate is? Well, first and foremost, I don't have to repeat this, maybe did a really good job at kind of looking at what our population demographics are, but 1.5 million South Carolinians will be over 65 by what year is that, 2035, right? And so that is an aging population that is going to need more health care. We face a nursing shortage of almost 13,000 nurses by that same time, right? So as we're gaining people in the state of South Carolina and we're getting older, we are losing nurses, right? And so right now that shortage is probably predicted around 5,000 to 7,000, predicted to be 13,000 by that year, right? That is a big problem for hospitals and healthcare systems and practices and everyone serving the communities. Overall, South Carolina is expected to be short 3,200 physicians by 2030. That is a lot of physicians. If you look at statistics, statistically, we're one of the worst states on population to physician ratio. And we are falling further and further behind as a state grows, and we can't recruit physicians and produce them fast enough. How does that affect Beaufort County? Well, in particular, today, based on our studies, we are 40 PCP shorts and approximately 70 specialists and surgeons short today, based on the 200,000 population. As this population grows, if we don't do a better job at getting providers to this area, that's going to get a lot worse than it is today. Medicaid expansion. So South Carolina is a non-Medicaid expansion state. South Carolina and all states during the COVID pandemic and subsequently afterwards stopped what they call the redetermination process, which means every year you have to re-up with Medicaid. You have to say, hey, I'm still here, and yes, I still need it, here are all my qualifications, and so more people went on the Medicaid rolls and more people stayed on the Medicaid rolls, which is great because during COVID, more people needed health care, right? Well, since we restarted the redetermination process, almost 500,000 people have come off the Medicaid rolls of the state. Now, that may be good or bad, but for hospitals and health systems, that is bad because that is 500,000 less people with insurance, right? And there is no necessarily understanding whether they went to the exchange or found another insurance plan, right? They are uncovered. And uncovered patients ultimately end up at the hospital, and hospitals have to subsidize that coverage. And how do you think that coverage is subsidized? Currently, inflation costs are outpacing hospital revenue growth. There's no shock there. I just explained to you we lose money on patient care. But overall, if you look at just hospital industry standards, total revenue is up about 45%, and total expenses are up 49%, right? And so again, we continue to see the cost of care escalating. We do everything we can to increase revenue, but ultimately it has not been enough. So what are we doing, right? What are we doing to address these needs? Both how do we look at this and say, how do we figure out what's going on at the federal level? How do we figure out what's going on at the state level? How do we figure out what's going on at the local level? Well, workforce development is going to be the big key here, right? Because it doesn't matter what we build. It doesn't matter where we build. Hospitals, physician practices, imaging centers are just bricks and mortar. At the end of the day, it's the people that make our facilities work. And so we have to develop more people. So let's talk about physicians and APPs. APPs would be a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant, right, who are very key and instrumental to how we deliver care. Because it takes a team, and they work as a team, because teamwork what makes the dream work, right? That's what we say in hospitals and health systems or anywhere else. And healthcare is a team sport. And so you can see we have actually done a fairly decent job compared to most, especially in the market, of recruiting new primary care doctors. All of those on the top are all physicians. They're all primary care, and all started within the last 2 years. We actually have seen, north of the Broad, remember, 2 different ecosystems, we've actually seen a little bit of a slowdown in demand for primary care north of the Broad River. We have some availability, which means that I think we are kind of hitting a point where north of the Broad we can take a breath for primary care. Now, south of the Broad, not so much. We are still looking at 8 to 10 months for a primary care appointment south of the Broad River, but north of the Broad we feel like we're getting to a good place, and you see some of our psychiatry providers as well. And then specialists, again, we acknowledge specialty care is difficult. For example, you have about 2.5 neurologists to serve 200,000 people in this community. That is a problem. We've recruited orthopedics, cardiology, plastic surgery, pulmonology, gastroenterology, medical oncology, general surgery, more pulmonology, urology. More and more are coming, but again, we are just growing too fast. We are aging too fast, and people need more specialty care. It is hard to keep up. Even if we recruit this many providers and start these many new practices over the course of 2 years, it is still a difficult task to keep up with the need here. We've talked a lot about our PATH program. This continues to be a great success. I want to recognize University of South Carolina, Beaufort. They are here today. Obviously, Beaufort County, the city of Beaufort have been instrumental in really helping drive the PATH program. But we have trained almost 100 people now that otherwise were not patient care techs, not CNAs, we're not phlebotomists. And we put them at the bedside, which has been very important because we talk about the nursing shortage, but there's a shortage of everything. How many knew what a respiratory therapist was before the COVID pandemic? Probably not many, but I can tell you during the pandemic, respiratory therapists became as important as anyone else because they were the one managing the vents. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, we had 40 vents going at the hospital. On a day-to-day basis, on a typical day, if you outside of the pandemic, we probably have 5. So you can imagine how far these therapists were stretched to manage those vents. Boy, there's a shortage there. Laboratory medical techs, you name it, there's probably a shortage within our industry. So we are trying hard in order to grow our people from within. We also recently launched a program in the high schools, dual enrollment for certified medical assistants. Those are that you've been to a physician office. As CMA is, who takes you to the room, takes your vitals, starts the documentation process, and then the physician enters the room. So that's what a certified medical assistant does for us. USCB and us have partnered together with the city and with the county to build a new nursing satellite campus for them, state-of-the-art skills labs, and in hopes of really increasing their enrollment opportunities. We want to increase the number of students that are enrolled at USCB in hopes that they stay in Beaufort, and otherwise increasing the nursing supply in Beaufort as well. Childcare. So we talk a lot about housing. I've been talking to Megan a lot about childcare. If you have children, you probably understand this, but childcare is a real issue in Beaufort County. It is a desert, and it is expensive. And so we just cut the ribbon on a brand new child care center on our campus to help expand access and reduce the cost of care child care, because we know that that's important to our nurses, to our techs, to our patient registration access folks, to our housekeepers, who are all using this currently to keep their kiddos on campus at an affordable rate. And then housing, I know we have a housing presentation. I know we spoke about housing. I know the coastal community has done a lot of good things with housing. I'll just say we are working on and will potentially are going to break ground on one of 3 sites for workforce housing. And the one that is nearest the start would be the Live Well Terrace by Youth Memorial. And so this is 120 units that is partnered with City of Bluffton, Beaufort County, and Wood and Cooper companies to build workforce housing using low-income housing tax credits. So those that will live here will fall anywhere between 80 and 40% of the area median income. And so we are focusing on first responders, healthcare workers, teachers, etc. And just so you know, this is not a Beaufort Memorial only. This is not reserved just for Beaufort Memorial employees. This is for anyone and everyone, right? Because we're taking tax credits, we're opening this up to the general public, which is important because we think that as you flood the market with more of these units, as you create the playbook for others to follow, because it will take a partnership. Make no mistake about it. One person, one county, one town, one institution cannot do this on their own. It will take unique and innovative partnerships to deliver the housing and the affordable child care that we need in order to retain the workforce that is necessary to keep this community going. And it will take things like this to do it, right? It will take good partnerships and good people doing the right thing. Our other community investment, so if you think of north of the Broad, we continue to invest in the hospital here. We are currently undergoing a $24 million renovation of our operating suites. So I told you we're doing about 14,000 surgeries a year right now. When I arrived 8 years ago, that was 7,000, right? And so we've doubled our surgeries, but we haven't doubled or increased our number of operating suites. And so we are increasing our number of operating suites to continue to allow for the increase in surgeries at the organization. We are doubling down on psychiatry care because we need to, because that is ever increasing. And we're installing a new CSU in the emergency room. So if you go to the emergency room in the next 8 months and you see construction, we are one of 13 hospitals that are piloting a crisis stabilization unit in the ER for psychiatric patients. Because believe it or not every patient qualifies for an inpatient stay. Right? Insurance sometimes has something to say about that. Well, just because they don't qualify for an inpatient stay doesn't mean that we feel they're safe to be discharged to the community. So a lot of times they linger in the emergency room, which is an inappropriate setting, right? As other people are seeking care for other very acute care kind of concerns, we're struggling to figure out what do we do with this patient that we can't quite figure out, or we can't send them home, or they don't have a home, right? What do we do with them? Well, now we'll have an observation unit where for 48 hours we can treat them, we can stabilize them, we can manage medications, and find the appropriate community resources, right, in order to do that, while also focusing on the patients that continue to arrive to the ER. We're excited about this project. a new angiography suite. These three commitments alone represent a $27.2 million investment back in Beaufort Memorial Hospital and back in northern Beaufort County. Primary care. We have several primary care projects underway, so we're very excited about this. A new building will be coming in 3 years at the May River Crossings off of 170. And then we recently announced a freestanding emergency room and urgent care center on the island of Hilton Head. Remember, I've said that Hilton Head probably struggles more than most with healthcare access. And so this will be one of the first of its kind. You may say, well, I've seen a freestanding ED just down the road. Lots of people have freestanding EDs. That is true. The difference here is this also has an urgent care track. Because if we go back and say we need to reduce the cost of healthcare in this community, in this country, etc., I will tell you there's $90 million a year in waste in unnecessary emergency room visits. How many of you have been injured or sick, or you have a child or a family member and you say, I don't know if I should go to the emergency room or should I go to the urgent care, right? That is a difficult decision to make. A lot of people err on the emergency room side, right? Well, that is a lot more expensive than urgent care. And studies show that 90 million of that could have gone back to an urgent care. And so this new model combines both. And so when a patient presents to a model like this, you're triaged. And if you're an urgent care patient, you will go down the urgent care track, you will receive an urgent care bill saving you, the employer, and the insurance company $2,000. If you're an emergency room patient, i.e., got a full panel of labs, I had a CT, I had an ultrasound, which all of that will be there, you will probably get an emergency room visit. But we believe if 60 people arrive per day in this emergency room, 40 of those will be urgent care patients, and only 20 will actually require and need emergency room care. It's models like this that really have to drive the future of healthcare if we want to bring healthcare costs in. It's not cutting insurance. It's not reducing those who are on Medicaid or other things of that nature. It's not pushing Medicare people over to Medicare Advantage plans. It's innovative solutions like this that will help the community and drive down the cost of care by having people at the right site of care. And that's the key to a lot of healthcare waste. And then lastly, we broke ground in the last month on our Bluffton Community Medical Campus. This has been a long time coming, but this really is the future of the evolution of Beaufort Memorial, how we really expand care to the community. And this is important for South Broad, but let me tell you why it's important for North Broad, okay? Because we are full today. We remain full as a hospital. But what if I told you, if I had 120 patients in my hospital, 20 to 30 of those actually come from Bluffton zip codes, right? More and more people south of Broad are choosing Beaufort Memorial for their care and being admitted to the hospital. And so in order for us to expand bed capacity and capacity at Beaufort Memorial, we have to expand capacity at Bluffton. So we got to relocate those Bluffton patients to Bluffton in order to expand care for patients in Beaufort, right? And that's why this is so important for both. When we do this, it's about a $100 million project, $70 million in construction, $23 million in equipment, $10 million in professional fees, and in year one, it will create 250 new jobs for $16.2 million in salary, wages, and benefits. And you may say, man, it feels like we need a lot more than this. Well, let me tell you something. I probably do, right? But unfortunately, what we have to recognize and realize is not plausible or conceivable that we're going to find 1,000 people to work in a brand new hospital. We can't find enough people to work in the hospitals in this community today. Right? So what makes us believe that we can find another 1,000 employees, right? So we have to build for today, we have to build for what we can staff, we have to build for staffing ratios and for the providers we can recruit to the community, and there's facilities like this that will do it, right? And so that's why we believe that smart growth, appropriate growth, patient-focused growth is exactly what this community needs in order to build a sustainable and viable healthcare ecosystem for the future. So hopefully you found this presentation insightful. Hopefully you took something away from it. And again, I appreciate the Chamber giving us an opportunity to present all the things that we're doing as an organization. Thank you guys.
Okay, let's sit back down. And in fact, if the whole BMH table would stand up real quick, we have a little announcement to make. Come on up. This will just take a second. Each month, the Chamber celebrates members who've reached milestones in their membership. Earlier this month, we left one off the list on purpose. Why? Because it is a very big milestone. Today, in front of all of you, we'd like to celebrate Beaufort Memorial, now a 50-year member of the Chamber.
go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There.
All right, and everybody else, make sure you get your picture taken before you leave today. We'd love to have all of you cataloged on our social media. I'd like to welcome Jennifer Tuxler to the podium. She's past chair of the Chamber's Board of Directors. She and her husband own Carolina Air, and she is an integral part of the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust. Thank you for sponsoring our breakfast this morning. We figured you're the perfect person to introduce our next speaker.
Thanks, Megan. I'm just happy to be here on behalf of Carolina Air right now as the breakfast sponsor, so I'm going to put on my Carolina Air hat. We are an over 40-year-old second-generation family business of HVAC contracting here in Beaufort, and my husband, he takes care of day-to-day operations. We worked together for nearly 20 years, and I decided it was time to do something different. So I was out looking, and this housing opportunity came available, and I was fortunate enough to come into the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust kind of when it was just getting started. I have the pleasure this morning of welcoming Claude Hicks, our Executive Director of the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust, to talk a little bit about the state of housing in our community. So without further ado, let's welcome Claude Hicks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Your check is in the mail. For anyone who wonders why people want to come live here, just take a look outside. It is February 28th, by the way. My wife still lives in Pennsylvania while she is managing our daughter's wedding. That will be happening in August, the most painful point in my entire life. So I guess it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. We talk every morning, we talk every evening, and we start out saying, what's the temperature there? So I guess it was maybe 4 weeks ago, I said, well, it's going to be chilly. It's 57 degrees. What's the temperature there? She said 2. We don't talk about the weather anymore. We talk about other things. I want to thank the Chamber, thank you, Jennifer, for that nice introduction. We want to take a few moments to talk about what we have spoken to with respect to groups in this area over 100 times since I got here in the first grade. Everybody wants to know, what are you going to do about housing? How fast can you do it? And does it have to be near my neighborhood? Those are the 3 things that we get the most with respect to talking about housing. Oh, it worked, thank God. We have a very simple mission. Our mission is to create and preserve workforce and affordable housing. That is a huge task written in a very simple mission. We are a 501c3, and our board of directors consists of the 9 municipalities and 2 counties, along with additional members of the board that make up Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust. We began with a simple question: what can we do about housing in Beaufort and Jasper counties? That was a long conversation. It was anchored by the Asakura-Robinson study on housing and what we needed. And the initial approach was a very simple one. This should be regionalized. We should do this together. No single entity had the ability to tackle housing in their area without relying on other regions in the area. So Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust was formed out of that idea, and it has grown out of that idea to, in its first fully functioning year last year, we handed out almost $2 million to grantees throughout Beaufort Jasper County. Beaufort Memorial Hospital is one, Habitat is another, Deep Well is another, that take those funds and then apply them directly to recipients all across both counties. As we talk about housing, why housing matters? Economic growth. You cannot grow an economy without having places for people to live. It's impossible to do. quality of life. People talk all the time about understanding the connection between housing and the quality of life. If you live in substandard housing, the odds are astronomical that you will also have health issues, you will also have education issues, you will also have child care issues, and a family that is functioning the way that it should be, that has all of those barriers in front of it, is going to struggle. It's going to struggle mightily. Regional collaboration is the only way that we can do this. Wherever we go, the question is, what is somebody else doing about this? Hilton Head has taken on a very different approach, not a unique approach at all, but very different with respect to trying to keep workforce residents on the island. Beaufort, City of Beaufort, for example, we are partnering with to create a home repair program specific to the City of Beaufort. But all of these happen because of the regional approach between cities, counties, municipalities, towns, and how we can work together to create housing. So when we look back at building permits are a sign of how rapidly a growing population keeps up with the amount of houses that need to be built and the number of permits that need to be gotten by the construction community and development community. We have not recovered since 2002. Our building permits are going down. They're leveling off a little bit. And a lot of you are looking and saying, wait a minute, there's building going on everywhere. But the building permits for housing have been limited. Building permits for commercial, for restaurants, for commercial buildings has grown a little bit, but housing has had a very difficult time, especially housing that can be accessed by people earning median income or below. So today, across the country, there are 8.2 million housing units that are needed today. It's estimated within the next 10 years that will rise to above 10 million. That, when you look across the country, that means 10 million families not only do not have access, they don't have a choice. They can't look around and say, I've got options here, 2 or 3 places to live. They have no options. You've heard the name Dr. Ulrich from the Federal Reserve of Virginia. She spoke recently at a symposium here, and I can tell you that her words on this particular slide stopped the entire room. You didn't hear anybody say anything. You didn't hear anybody even gasp, which they should have. What the Federal Reserve does is it looks at how many housing units are occupied by people who can afford a medium price house without going over 30% of their annual income in rent payments or mortgage payments. They look at it every year. Dr. Ulrich informed us all, and she did this in kind of a dramatic way, that in the last 21 years, Beaufort, Jasper County has failed to have 1 residence that qualified under those standards. That, if nothing else, should wake everybody up that this is not an affordable place to live. But the requests and the requirements and the demands for services are rising on a daily basis. How many of you have walked into a restaurant and waited 45 minutes to an hour to get your food? I went into my doctor's office, and there's a sign on the very front where you check in. It says, not everybody showed up for work today. Be nice to those who did. They are seeing shortages that are astronomical. Russell and I have talked about this before. You can't provide hospital services without workers. You cannot run a bank without tellers. You cannot run a fire department, a police department, a sheriff's department, an EMS department without workers. It's impossible to do. And yet, This area is struggling as it has never done before to try and find those workers. And their first question, the very first question, is where can I live? What are apartment rents like? When you say that the average apartment rent for a one-bedroom is exceeding $2,000, a two-bedroom is exceeding $2,400, and a three-bedroom is now pushing over $3,000, they tend to take a look and say, thank you very much, and they go to Columbia, or they go to Greenville, or they go to somewhere else to work, or Charlotte, where they can get, they have a variety, they have options at where they want to live. When we take a look at what cost burdening means, cost burden essentially says you're spending more than 30% of your income on rent or on a house payment. Look all the way over to the right-hand side. 46% of renters in our area pay more than 30% of their income in rent. Some pay as high as 50 to 60% of their income. If you're paying 50% of your pay for rent, you have hard choices about child care. You have hard choices when you go to the grocery store. You have hard choices with respect to transportation. So we looked at this area, and if you look at the third one down, 100% of median family income for a family of four is $106,000. For them not to exceed 30% of their income, their housing costs can cost them more than $2,600 a month. If you buy a reasonable house, $350,000, $400,000, add up your mortgage payment, your taxes, your insurance, the cost of maintaining that home, you are now way, way, way above 30% of your income. Take a look right in the middle, and Russell will probably recognize this term. This is the missing middle. Those people who make too much to qualify for tax credit housing, but don't make enough to pay $3,000 a month in rent. That middle right there is where all of your young professionals, is where all of your sheriffs, your policemen, your teachers, your nurses, they reside right there, right in the middle. Their options are almost zero. What they do then is they make choices. They take on a roommate, they work an extra job, they do whatever they need to do to be able to pay the rent, and make their car payment, and pay their insurance, and all the rest of the things that we pay on a daily basis. What can the state do? I have to tell you, my parents were born and raised in Charleston. I went to school, high school in Columbia. Dealing with the state of South Carolina is like wrestling a bear. You might get a punch in here or there, but the bear's gonna win. The state of South Carolina has a long way to go with respect to understanding what's happening in its own state. Myrtle Beach is now on a per capita basis the fastest growing place in the United States on a per capita basis. Myrtle Beach. It's almost staggering to think about. When you think about Columbia, Greenville, Spartanburg, Jennifer and I went to the qualified allocation plan meeting down in Columbia, or up in Columbia, or western Columbia, wherever it is. And the guy from Greenville stood up and said, we should get all the tax credits. We did the best job of development, we have the most need, we have the most demand, give them all to us. And the rest of you can just figure it out on your own. For a long time, the state in its qualified allocation plan had a little sentence that said, you can only apply for tax credits if you have 1,000 jobs within 1 mile of your proposed project. Nowhere in Beaufort and Jasper County did that qualify. Nowhere. So for years, nothing came here. An occasional thing would happen, like happened a couple of years ago, where an opportunity zone was created in Beaufort, and 2 projects were being built now side by side, one family and one senior. But the odds of that happening again, excuse me, again, are slim. The state has to figure out how it gets its money from Columbia to Beaufort County. We have qualified, the trust is qualified, to be one of two entities in the area that is qualified to access the state $20 million fund for home repair. You think, oh, that sounds good. That would be great. 2 years ago, that home repair fund, $20 million, repaired one porch and one front door in York County, and that was it. The state has got to figure out how it reduces red tape, how it cuts the bureaucracy to get money to one of the fastest growing parts of the state. It's almost like Columbia doesn't realize we're here, and I know many of you probably realized that a long time ago. But we have to get them to bring resources here. We have to get them to figure out how to do this in a way that it benefits what we're trying to do. Everyone asks me, when can you build that development? Normal tax credit development in this area takes 5 years, from the minute that somebody identifies the property to the minute that they open the door. Well, 5 years, what are all these people going to do for the next 5 years? They're going to go somewhere else to find another job, another place where they can live. What can we do locally? Number one is partner. Nothing gets done in housing, nothing, without partnership. Number two is take a look at our infrastructure costs. 3 developers have come in my office in the last month and said they're going to walk away from the development because the hookups and the fees charged by county and municipality are so big, and the water sewer hookups are so expensive, they can't do the deal. They can't figure out where to get the money from. We're going to have to address this problem. It's here. Everybody knows it's here. We need to talk about it. The trust is going to sponsor a forum this fall in which we're going to ask developers, municipalities, general contractors, investors, lenders, to come to the table to talk about how we reduce red tape and bureaucracy and open up opportunities to build workforce housing. Finally, we need to overcome resistance to public support. I can't tell you how many meetings that I've been to in my career where people stand up and say, you know, this is a really good idea. Can you do it in the town next to us? Because primarily of the perception that people have about who's living there. Workforce housing and affordable housing is the only housing in the United States of America where you can discriminate against it based on who's going to live there. People have this image of who's going to live there. Oh my gosh, it's going to be awful. Let me tell you what the average senior workforce or senior tax credit development in the United States looks like. Women over 72, they had a house, had a husband died, can't pay the taxes, can't pay the insurance, sold the house, looked around, and nobody was going to take them. They come to us, they qualify, they're living on a fixed income. They occupy our apartments until they either pass away or have health care issues that don't allow them to live on an individual basis. They stay forever because they have no other options. They pay their rent 5 days in advance because they're afraid of losing their apartment. On the family side, there is more due diligence done on a tax credit family coming in to apply than is done on any market rate product that we have in this area. You think it's tough to get into an apartment, period? Try to get into a tax credit apartment. What we are looking at is how do we use those dollars, use those resources to create workforce housing, to create affordable housing that is accessible, that keeps that young family here they're going to choose this area as a place to raise their family, as a place that they want to invest their dollars. The future is bright here because you have people like you who sit in a room and say, I knew there was a problem with housing. I knew that we need to do something about it. And people are committing to actually moving forward and doing something about it to create opportunities for everyone who wants to live here to actually be able to do so. Thank you very much.
All right, we're moving on to the final piece of our program today, the state of government led by Courtney Worrell, who chairs the Chamber's Public Policy Committee and Low Country Bank Council. Good morning. I'm Courtney Worrell with 303 Associates, and I'm proud to serve on the Chamber's Board of Directors. For over 25 years, 303 has been dedicated to investing in commercial, retail, office, multifamily, and hospitality projects that support the economic growth and vitality of our community. Our focus is on infill development because we believe responsible planning is absolutely essential to minimizing the negative impacts of sprawl. We're deeply committed to the Beaufort region. We value its rich history, its pristine environment, and most importantly, its people. Our work is driven by the goal of building a sustainable and thriving economy for future generations. That's why the 303 Associates team is proud to sponsor today's event and to lead today's discussion with some of our region's most influential government officials. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished panel for the State of the Government discussion. We've got Tab Kaepernick, Vice Chairwoman of the Beaufort County Council, Mayor Phil Cromer, City of Beaufort, and Mayor Kevin Phillips, Town of Fort Worth. We'll begin by asking each panelist to be prepared for questions, and then as time permits, we'll open the floor to questions. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to recognize the dedication of our county and municipal councils for fostering a strong and vibrant business community. The Chamber greatly appreciates their commitment to collaboration, to smart growth, and to economic sustainability. Their willingness to engage with local businesses and implement policies that support economic development is invaluable. We've heard a lot about partnerships today, and a thriving business climate doesn't happen by accident. It requires partnerships between both the public and the private sectors, and we're grateful for their leadership in shaping a future where businesses and communities prosper together. So let's begin. The first question. To start, please share the top 2 or 3 priorities of your councils in 2025. Mayor Cromer, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, the top 3, and I'll say these are immediate priorities. Number 1 is going to be our waterfront park, and I'm sure everybody's aware of the situation there. It's a vital component not only to our economy, but also to our community because it's such a gathering place for us. So that's first and foremost. Secondly is infrastructure. We have, being in the low country, we need to be more resilient. We have flooding issues, and so we have 4 major stormwater projects that are going to be underway here within the next 2 years. And the immediacy of this is because some of these projects are being funded by ARPA money. And so there is a deadline to get those completed. And I think the third thing that's immediate is our code updates because we're experiencing explosive growth in the area. And we have to get our code, our development code, in line with our plans. And so those are the first 3 immediate. And there's one longer term, one that I would say we need to diversify our economy. You've heard that a little bit earlier. But we've got to keep that missing middle, as I call it. I take a phrase from the affordable housing, the 25 to 55-year-olds. We have to keep people here and get them some higher paying jobs so they can live here and contribute to our community.
Thank you. Ms. Tavernick?
So I don't think it would surprise any of you that one of our top priorities is to restore public trust. We have been living under a rain cloud that's, we might call it a torrential rain cloud, for the last 18 months. And that is going away just like we have here beautiful sunshine. Our goal is to regain the public trust. How we do that, that's in my question 3, so I'll circle back. But we need the public to understand, and all of you, all of our constituents, that we work for you. The council people work for you, the administration, and all of our employees that work very hard work for you. So that's one priority. Our second priority is, we heard over and over, where's the money go? Why do you need more money? What are you doing? So we are outlining, I call it buckets of funds. So just like in your home, one bucket of funding would be operating expenses, putting the lights on, paying our people and so on. Another bucket would be maintaining our facilities. We have 131 buildings with 900,000 square feet. That takes a lot of maintenance. There's roofs, there's elevators, there's all kinds of things in there. The next budget would be parks and recreation. Claude just talked about, having families here. We keep families here and keep seniors happy by having parks and recreation. So we will have that bucket there. And then we'll have a bucket for capital funds. And those would be new things we want. In Sun City, I call them new toys. But, so for example, we want to have a law enforcement center. Where's that money going to come from? We want to have, upgrade things, and we want to have new opportunities. So that bucket would be there. And then we have enterprise funds, which would be like the airport. They generate revenue to cover their expenses. So by making that clear to the public, we think we could restore some public trust. And then the last part, the third part, there's like 100 of them for us, but the third one would be, where's that money going to come from? Only some of it comes from millage, a lot of it, but where are you going to get money for transportation? Our referendum went down. Where are you going to get money for capital projects like the law enforcement center? So discussions of a possible referendum in 2026.
Mayor Phillips.
Okay, thank you all. Good morning. First off, I just want to say thank you for everybody being here. As we've heard, community, of course, we do have some challenges going forward, but when I look out, I see this very diverse group of people here that are focused, that are engaged, working together. I know we're gonna be all right and get through those challenges that we talked about. So, from the town of Port Royal, for top two priorities, we just had our retreat, so that was good to talk about. Number one, what we're focused on is, one thing is going to be working with Safe Harbor, our partners at Safe Harbor that own the port property in Port Royal. We've built some really good momentum with them. If you've read recent articles, we've just had a settlement agreement in place with them that we just cleared up some issues that we had going forward. And so this year is really going to be focused on continuing that relationship, building on that momentum, and starting to get some projects going with the port development, because that's going to be fundamental to what Port Royal is for the next 100 years. So focus on that. And then number two is going to be finishing capital projects. So we've got some capital projects that we've designated money for, some things that the town needs. One's going to be a causeway entrance into Sands Beach. The other is going to be getting the Spanish Moss Trail across Rebo Road, connecting that into the town. And then the other one's going to be building back our shrimp docks and day docks and having more public access to the water in the town. So working with Safe Harbor, building on the momentum that we have, and then number two, finishing the capital projects.
Thank you. Our second question. Referring to the Chamber's annual public policy agenda, can you provide insight into one or two policy issues your council is actively working on that impact local businesses? Councilwoman Tabernick will start with you.
So I looked at the policy statement. One of ours is economic development, and I want to recognize John O'Toole, who's our executive director. And in 2024, we had new private investment of over $110 million. And job creation, 239, with an average compensation of $74,000. There are some, for example, there's TL and Company Aerospace, 125 jobs. There's CS Instruments in Germany, their corporate headquarters moving here at 13 jobs, average compensation 69 grand. Solomon from Detroit, they will build new 63 jobs, average compensation 121,000. And MasterCorp, which is a hospitality laundry service, is 164 jobs, average compensation about 40 million. So obviously economic development is important to us. But with economic development, you heard Claude talk about you need workforce housing because there has to be a place for them to live. So you heard Russell Baxley talk about we partner with the hospital. We are a proud partner with them and a proud partner with the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust Fund. We also have purchased land in downtown Beaufort from TCL that we will use for workforce housing, and we've done some other things. But workforce housing is a priority because if you bring companies here, the workers have to have somewhere to live. And the third one from that is infrastructure. So I noticed in reading the policy, it says voter approved 2018 referendum transportation. Well, you all know the referendum that we passed in 2018, hard to believe it's so many years ago. But many projects weren't finished, right? Because COVID hit, supply chain hit, now the projects are more than they were. So we have met with the mayors, and we will be looking at which of those projects should be the priority list to get those implemented, shovels in the ground, get moving on that, and we will go with our municipalities on that. And for infrastructure, you understand boat ramps, boat docks are very important here, and we did a whole study, and there's over $100 million challenges there, but that goes to quality of life. So those are some of the priorities in those policy statements.
Mayor Phillips?
Yes, so issues that we're working on, again, this is great because we just had a retreat, so it's all fresh in my mind. So right now, we're actually going through a major overhaul of our entire planning code. We've been at that for months. We brought in a consultant. You always got to have a consultant. So we brought someone in to work with our planning department. They actually just had a meeting last night, and they're having these workshops. And what we did was we identified kind of with the development we were seeing in Port Royal. What we were seeing was a lot of our large-scale multifamily units and large-scale developments. What they were basically national developers coming in that have a set product. They can do that product anywhere, and they're just looking for the place that they can come in and it just makes sense. They need the land, they need this. If it checks all the boxes, boom, they can just build whatever they've built 10 other times around the country, but put it right here. We saw that. We also were hearing from developers that there was a lot of redundancy. It was very unclear, our development code. It was clunky, it was bulky, and it just had stuff in there that was unnecessary. So we've got together and unleashed our planning department, working with that consultant, working with our planning department to try and streamline our development process, but also make it to where it identifies projects that fit into Port Royal aesthetically, that just feel right, that are the type of developments that we want, whether that's residential, whether that's multifamily, whether that's businesses. So now we can identify projects and developers that fit with the character of Port Royal. But then once we've identified those people, now we can streamline that process of development. Hopefully that trickles down to a lower cost on development, and we know that affects the bottom line and affects the people. So that's one. Number two is those capital projects that I talked about. So really what we're trying to do is figure out ways to, if you attract people to Port Royal, if the people are there, then we think the businesses will follow. So again, the Spanish Moss Trail, bringing that's going to allow people from all over Beaufort County access on a bicycle down into Port Royal for the day. When we build back the day docks, now we got people on boats that can come and spend time in Port Royal on the day. When we open up the causeway, protecting and preserving the entrance to Sands Beach, now you've got people spending all day on the beach. That's the goal and idea of Port Royal, is to create avenues for people to come to Port Royal, whether that's by bike, by car, by boat, spend the day and have a good time. And of course, that will attract businesses and they will spend money, and that is good because if we can get the money out of the businesses and the business revenues, then we can keep those taxes low on the residents that live in the town. So those are the two, there you go. I can keep going, so I'll just shut it off.
Well, as I mentioned earlier about the infrastructure, dealing with the waterfront park and doing the stormwater, we also locally, to help out local businesses, we have a Main Street program. We have a downtown operations department that works closely, mainly in our core downtown area. We've also, on the affordable housing front, as we heard Claude mention earlier, we've stood up a home repair program in the city of Beaufort to help out those who are having financially difficult situations and also living in unsafe housing. We also have partnered with them as well as the other municipalities in supporting the housing trust. And we have, I think it's 3 LIHTC or low-income housing tax credit projects going on in Beaufort right now. 2 of them that Claude mentioned that are on the Boundary Street area. So we've got that going. We also work very closely with the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation. They're working with us to bring businesses and jobs to our Commerce Park. We also support the Beaufort Digital Corridor and the South Coast Cyber Center. And we do that because we want to try to diversify our economy and get higher paying jobs. And we think with innovation and technology, this is the path that we need to take. And I guess those are a couple of things.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tabernick, you've already mentioned the council's desire to improve transparency. Can you please give us some specifics on how this is going to be accomplished?
accomplished and how you're going to continue to encourage public input?
I'd love to. So we're doing a couple of very simple things to me, but hopefully will generate trust from the public. First of all, we are doing more workshops out in the open. Everybody talks in Washington about sunlight's the best disinfectant and blah, blah, blah. Well, we're going to do more and more of our workshops. We've already done 4 in less than 6 weeks. And these are open to the public, and if you can't come to them because possibly you work, you can watch them on the Beaufort County channel. We are also doing a chat with council. We started that last year. We do one north, the next month one south. We go back and forth. These are impromptu meetings. Residents come, they can ask a question, criticize us for something, give us kudos for something, make a suggestion. And the first one we had this year in Bluffton was over 50 people, and really a great crowd. So we have chat with council. It's very informal. It's like open mic night. We also starting our council meetings at 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock. We're doing our executive sessions before the council meeting, so people don't have to wait while we go in and come out. And we are limiting our executive sessions to truly legal advice, land purchase, and personnel, and doing more of our work in public. So we're doing that, and let's see, we expanded public comment to 30 minutes. Nobody's taken 30 minutes yet, but people used to say, well, that's only 5, if it's 15 minutes, that's only 5 people, 3 minutes. We've expanded it to 30 minutes, and if we need to add it on the end, we'll do that. We took that tip from the Beaufort County Schools, so I'll thank them for that. And we are strengthening our relationships with the municipalities. We've already met twice in 2 months. And so I think that's really a great thing because we hear what our municipalities are working with and we talk about how we can collaborate. So that, and also making our finances a little more open to the public, that's transparency. We're communicating social media. That's where we're going with this.
Extremely promising. Thank you. Mayor Kramer, you've already touched on the revisions to the Beaufort Development Code. Could you give us more specifics, please, about what are the goals of this revision and the associated timelines?
Certainly, the goals are really to simplify and clarify the development code and make it more user-friendly, easier to be more predictable and so forth. And the goal is to make it in line with our comprehensive plan and our other plans. I think overall we're trying to balance growth while still preserving our historic, cultural, and natural resources. So that's the main goals. But we have several chapters that have been going through. One of them is land development, chapter 7 and chapter 9, which is also dealing with development review processes. That's the major portion of our code, and they've spent almost a year now going over that with fine-tooth combs, and they've revised over 100 pages. So that's going to be coming forward to council, I believe, at the next council meeting. They're also working on chapter 5, which deals with landscaping, trees and parking standards. We're going to try to increase and require tree coverage and canopy. As you know, most of the developments we've seen lately, they clear cut everything. We're going to be requiring some stronger tree requirements. And that should be coming toward to us probably, hopefully, by the end of spring. And then the last is the final chapters 2 through 4, which is zoning and design, and that's going to be hopefully completed by the end of the summer. So.
And if I'm not mistaken, when these proposed changes come to council in the packets, often in the red line version, so that any layman can look and easily see what changes are being proposed.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor Phillips, you also mentioned some of the changes you're making to your code, but it was about, I think, 9 months ago or so that parole enacted a moratorium on multifamily housing, which I think is defined as 3 units or more. So I just wanted to get an understanding from you of what has happened in that time and what progress have you made and what are the next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, just want to touch on something that Councilwoman Tapp said. The collaboration between the municipalities right now is, I just feel at an all-time high. Really, I mean, we're here in February. We already have had a meeting with the city of Beaufort and the town of Beaufort. We've had a joint council meeting that Councilwoman Tapp was at with other council members as well, county council members as well. We had a meeting with all the managers and the town mayors, and Councilwoman Tabb and Howard were at that as well too. So the collaboration, again, we've already had 2 joint meetings here, and it's just February. So hopefully that continues. But I would ask that we need help from y'all with that, the collaboration. Please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us with any thoughts, concerns. You guys are on the front lines every day working your jobs and working your businesses, so please let us know what you're seeing and how we can help. So this is my last question, so I can get that plug in. So really quick, the moratorium's going great. It really is. It's been a great tool. As a municipality, I would encourage anyone to look into using one. If you're going to define it and make it temporary, and the goal for us was, in the town of Fort Worth, we were seeing, our population is pretty high compared to, more than the city of Beaufort now. A lot of that, what you're seeing is in apartment complexes up and down Savannah Highway, Robert Smalls, and then Paris Island Gateway as well too. And again, what we were seeing was a lot of that growth was just these national developers that build apartment complexes. They come in, they're looking for a plot, they plop down 500 units, and then they cash the check and they bounce. And then the town is left to sit there to deal with what we have to provide services for all those people and the congestion that it builds and what that brings to the town. And we want to keep that quality of life high that we all have talked about and enjoy today. So last year we did do a 1-year moratorium on multifamily apartment complexes, and what it's allowed us to do is just giving us a chance to breathe. It's just giving us a chance to pump the brakes and assess where we're at, what's been going on, and what we want to do going forward. Think about it like even in a football game, you got halftime, and where you go timeout, pause, what's going on, how did we get here, and how do we move going forward. So in that time, one, it's allowed our planning department to say, okay, no new applications on multifamily. And just for a heads up, we already had 3,000 units already approved in some level of planning. So those are still coming down the pipe. We still got thousands that are still being developed and planned for the town of Fort Worth. So what it did was it allowed our planning department to pump the brakes and not take any new applications, give them a little bit of breathing room, because it's how do you work on a problem while you're drinking from this fire hose. And so they've been able to do what they're doing is work on our code. And we should be, at our retreat, we were told by the planning director, Noah Krebs, that we should be seeing April 1st. We should have the plan, our updated planning code back in front of town council for us to start debating. Probably have first reading in April and May. And then at that point, the goal was always to have this new planning code coincide with the sunset of the moratorium. So again, it's been great. It's really just given us a chance to breathe and just slow down for a second and look at the development that we were getting. Is that what we want? Is that what we want to continue? And then make the changes that we want to make, which we're currently doing, and going to implement those going forward. So.
Thank you. Megan, do we have time for a few questions from the audience? Sure. Questions? Yes, sir. We've got a mic.
If you'll stand, actually. Court Royal and 303 Associates, there's a piece of land on Rebo Road. What's going to happen there?
It's under contract currently to another developer for potential site of the VA medical clinic.
Gotcha. There you go.
Carlton, I'm coming to you.
Thank you, Madam President. This has been a fantastic gathering. I've learned a lot sitting in the back and taking notes. My name is Carlton Dallas. I'm on the school board. Appreciate the compliments coming from those people on the dais up there about things that the school board has done. My actual question relates to funding. Having worked abroad and engaging high net worth individuals, there's such a demand for those individuals to come into the U.S. There's an immigrant investor visa program, which if a foreigner pays or inputs $850,000 into a project, they're able to come to the U.S., bring their family, live here. That project creates 10 jobs within 2 years. At year 5, they are given U.S. citizenship. That's a source of funding that may be attractive to some of the projects that are underway. Now, it is up for review, going to something new in terms of foreigners coming in, but right now it's in existence and it funds a lot of major projects. So just wanted to share that with you. That may be an avenue for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more. We got time for one more. Mr. Tom Ross from Chris Island.
In a lot of resort communities across the country, one of the biggest things in the housing is what's happening with the short-term rental market. And that short-term rentals are affecting the availability of housing. Are any of the governments looking into doing anything with short-term housing?
So yeah, I can tell you the town of Port Royal, we just voted at the end of last year, we put a cap on those in the residential areas. So it took us a while to get there, but we just had a vote. We were seeing the same things that you were talking about. Short-term rentals, while they do have an effect on affordability, availability. So yeah, the town of Port Royal last year, we ended up, I think that we voted on that in December, was to put a cap on short-term rentals in the residential areas. Now, again, a lot of Port Royal is apartment complexes and HOA neighborhoods, and the HOA neighborhoods have their own rules that they want to do in their neighborhoods, but for the town of Port Royal, we did actually vote on a short-term rental ordinance at the end of last year. So.
The city of Beaufort's had one for a long time. I think we may have been one of the first communities in the state to actually have a policy with short-term rentals, and we capped it to 6% for each identified neighborhood. And this is me personally speaking and not council, so I don't want anybody to think I'm speaking for council in the city. But I have an issue with the proliferation of short-term rentals. They've creeped into a lot of our neighborhoods, and it does take some housing stock, away from the potential for affordable housing. What I was hoping when we did these ADUs and all that is that it would be long-term rental versus short-term, but that's not the way I think it's turning out. I would prefer to see, if you're going to have a short-term rental, it ought to be on owner-occupied or owner-adjacent property, because I think otherwise you're inviting commercial creep into residential neighborhoods. Sometimes they are clustered together, and you may have one owner-occupied home in a neighborhood surrounded by short-term rentals, and that affects their quality of life. And so that's my personal opinion. So you can shoot the darts now.
I would say in short-term rentals, it was interesting. We have a policy that one person, like Kevin Phillips, can ask to have a short-term rental on his property. And we just went through this on council. So I understand the different sides of short-term rentals. I live in an HOA, so we are restricted. But I will say there's one tiny upside of short-term rentals, and that is accommodations tax. I'll just throw that out there because that helps the county fund some of our pier repairs, our boat repairs. We give grants to different groups. So that's a tiny upside of short-term rentals. I don't want to lose that. I know now you could throw darts at me. That's fine.
I think a recurring theme we've heard here today is collaboration, how we've got to continue to work together for the future health and benefit of our community. And I think our panel's done a great job of exemplifying that and how we're moving forward in a more collaborative spirit than we ever have before. So I'd like to thank our panel and thank you for your insights today and for your continued leadership on your respective councils and our communities moving forward. Thank you. Now, before we wrap up, we've got one more thing, and that's the door prizes. And I'd like to introduce and invite Bob Haggard up to the podium to announce the winners. Of course, I'll have a couple more.
We did run a little long today, but we had an ambitious agenda, and I hope you see that it was chock full of great information. So we have some door prizes. After that, we're officially adjourned, but hang out and chit-chat and network if you'd like to.
Please, don't leave yet, because your name is in the poll that's coming out here. It's right here. But before I do that, wow, what a great turnout, what great support for our chamber. And I was asked, and I'm going to be real candid about this, why did I move up in my support of the chamber this year to visionary? It's because Chamber of Commerce supports every single person in our community, every business in our community, so that we are all working together. We need to keep that in mind. I'm sitting here looking at Courtney with a smile. Please, if you know anyone business who is not a member of the chamber, let us all know. We are here. I'm a realtor. I have some extra time that I can do that. But being a realtor, I have to make one comment Claude, is Claude still here? If not, I'm sure this can get to him. We do need the housing here, and I say that because there are employees working. I have 2 employees of the hospital that I have put in their new homes, and they are driving from Hampton because they couldn't afford here. We need to really work. Think of driving back and forth every day. And I'm not criticizing Hampton, but we really need to look at that. Let's get that bowl over here. Oh, okay. Courtney, come on. You pull it, I'll read it. How's that? Here we go. Everybody's name is in there.
Well, what is the first prize, Bob?
State Farm.
Amy Bowman, raise your hand, please. Thank you for the swag bag
Amy,
today.
thank you so much. Shay Helms. Is Shay here? Oh, she's not here. We have to draw again. I knew she wasn't going to be here. Ashley Brandon. Ashley. Okay, what do we got next? Bring it up. Oh. We have, well, we'll pull 2 separate. We have round of golf for 2, card included, right out here on Dataw. How's that? Let's see who's gonna. Stacy Lamb. And the next one of the same thing, out of this beautiful course, is Ben Coppage. Ben? He's not here. Nobody, Shelley West Hodges. Shelley still here? No. Oh. If this keeps going, I'm going to have to play. Mike McPhee. Mike. He just left. Boy, you all let him know, okay? Janet Gresham. Now, Janet, the realtors will know where you are if you're not in the office. Just kidding. She is a great, great person. What have we got? Oh, complimentary ticket from the chamber for an after hours.
This is for all business after hours in 2025.
Whoa. Amy Bowman. And then we've got from Carolina Air, thermal coffee, hot or cold, because I've got one just like that. John Tuckweiler. Okay, let's try Chris McSwain. Chris? No? Whoa. Jeremy Taylor. That'll teach these people for leaving early. Faith Polke. Goodie bag from USCB, and I mean it's heavy.
Also, make sure you ask Mayor Phillips about his socks, speaking of USCB, so he's still here.
And I'm gonna murder this last name, I'm sure. Eric Walsinovich. Eric, he's here.
By the way, you pronounced Eric perfectly.
Bob, you gotta tell them about the grand prize you're holding.
Okay, this is a $150 gift card for Plums, Saltus, that entire group. So somebody's going to have a nice time out enjoying the meal. You'll really enjoy this one. Dr. Joey Schweringen. There you go. Enjoy.
Thank you to all of those who donated those prizes, and yes, Bob himself picked up that gift card, so thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Bob is our video sponsor, so a quick reminder, we'll send you an email after this next week. And it'll have a link to our video that we've been filming throughout today, so thank you again everyone for participating, for being here. I have some closing remarks there somewhere in here, but really the most important thing is that you're important to this chamber, and we look forward to working with you all moving forward. So have a great weekend.